What happened to this Wisconsin girl is now the subject of a federal investigation, and her family is devastated.
And then adding to their pain, there was a mix-up at the hospital. But Jeremy Ross says, sadly, that was only the beginning. The story only on Fox.
It's kind of a rural road.
Not all roads lead near the small village of Hammond, Wisconsin. But one that's a few miles away in St. Croix County led a man down a path paved with questions and unimaginable heartache.
She's remembered on a daily basis.
Since the fall of 2006, a roadside memorial marks the place where a car coming back from a shopping trip never made it home.
It was about 38 miles an hour when it impacted the tree.
Crash pictures show the wreckage partially wrapped around a tree. Vehicle left the roadway, the tires left the pavement as it flew through the air before coming to a violent stop. None of the people inside were wearing seatbelts. The driver would survive. 2 passengers would not. Why it happened remained a mystery, and even who was killed was shrouded in doubt at the beginning.
When I got there, they said she's gone.
Every day I think about her.
It was a hard moment. I haven't cried like that in a long time.
Following the crash, Doug Weigel lost his 18-year-old daughter, Natasha.
She passed away in our arms.
Natasha's stepfather, Ken Reimer, watched helplessly.
I'll never get to be a grandma or the mother of the bride.
Her mother, Jane Reimer, lost her only child.
Something wasn't right with this whole accident.
Unfortunately, the teen who died in front of them wasn't Natasha.
Mix-ups happen.
I really thought that was my daughter.
Amy Rodemaker was a young girl that died in our arms.
We all said, you better get that mother in here right now. You know, she missed her own daughter.
Natasha's friend, 15-year-old Amy Rodemaker, passed away first. She was misidentified at the hospital because of the severity of the injuries. Natasha's fight for survival, on the other hand, spanned more than a week. Time passed as she remained in a coma. On the 11th day in the hospital, her fight came to a tragic end.
I spent the first 2 weeks driving home every day after work bawling in my car.
I wanted to be there for her in her life, and I'll never have that chance.
We've always looked for the answer. We figured it wasn't going to come to us until the day we met these girls, you know, in heaven ourselves, and maybe they'd have the answer for it.
About 7 years later, an answer to the roadside question haunting the family was finally delivered.
The aha moment, yes. It was actually Valentine's night.
In February, General Motors announced the recall of millions of vehicles due to malfunctioning ignition switches, including the Chevrolet Cobalt Natasha and Amy were in. A part inside the console, a piece a fraction of the size of a quarter, similar to this one, could fail, switching a vehicle out of its running position into one, instantly cutting off things like power steering and safety features. Reimer believes the small amount of weight added to the car ignition key, the keys attached to a keychain, could have led to the fatal failure that ended Natasha's life.
That was pulling the key down, or as far as if you had other keys and that on it. It just wasn't strong enough.
And there's no words to describe how that makes me very angry.
The intersection of that anger and a growing federal investigation led the family and others like them to Washington, D.C.
None of this ever had to happen.
Reimer spoke in front of the Capitol.
I cannot tell you why it took so long for a safety defect to be announced.
General Motors CEO spoke in front of lawmakers. It was during this process legislators released documents claiming the company knew about the ignition flaw for more than a decade, with one lawmaker saying the fix could have been made for just 57 cents per part.
You can add up all the prices of them springs. It doesn't add up.
Unfortunately, it cost my daughter's life.
You don't put a car on the road and even think that there's a possibility that it's unsafe. And someone in GM did that.
But I can tell you we will find out.
GM promised a full investigation into what happened, including the remanufacturing of the faulty part. Back in 2006, it was altered to increase its strength and safety. Normally when that happens, a new number is assigned to the new product. But in this case, that was never done. That made tracking down the flaw more difficult for investigators. The family argues it concealed cost-cutting. It cost lives.
It smells like a cover-up from what we've been hearing.
Was there a cover-up?
I believe there was.
It is tragic.
GM apologized to the families of 13 victims linked to the flawed ignition parts. Natasha's family believes she was the second or third casualty in that group. The CEO shared her condolences directly with the families in a closed-door meeting.
She just told each family she was sorry.
We accepted her apology, yeah.
It was all very scripted, and she had two lawyers beside her that shook her hands and said, "I'm so sorry for your loss." And she went around to 13 families and said that, but it was all very scripted and very, very guided by her lawyers, and I found that very painful.
On the road towards truth, one family failed to find closure, but did find answers, including what may have killed their loved one and what might have triggered the tragedy.
I believe it was corporate greed.
I'd rather have my daughter back. I'd rather have everyone have their child back. But in the end, GM, I hope, gets this right.
The General Motors investigation, and perhaps the federal one, could wrap up weeks from now. Both Natasha and Amy's family are part of a lawsuit against General Motors. Natasha's mother is hoping for criminal charges in this matter.